What is going on, friends? Welcome back to another episode of The Athlete Unfiltered. I'm your host, Thomas Kauffman, and today we are going to be talking about fitness trackers, or also known as fitness wearables, or I don't know if there's any other name for them right now. But this is going to be your Garmin watch, your Apple Watch. It's also going to be your Samsung Polar Watch, even the Oura rings. I know I'm missing a few out there. Maybe the Fitbit is out there as well. So there are definitely a lot of fitness trackers out there. And the reason why we are talking about this today is because over the last couple of weeks, I've had patients and I've had athletes ask me which ones are the best wearables for them. And honestly, the best wearable for you is going to be the one that you can afford and gives you consistent data that informs your everyday decisions, right? Now, today we're going to be talking about whether you should purchase a fitness tracker or whether you shouldn't. And I'm going to give you a couple of reasons why you should, and I'm also going to talk about some of the reasons why you shouldn't. So, if you are already utilizing a fitness wearable or a fitness tracker, which one are you utilizing? And most important, what variables are you tracking and how are you using them? Let us know in the comments below. I went with the Garmin Fenix 7. I purchased this probably, by this summer, it's going to be 2 years ago because I wanted to improve my golf game. Now, the Garmin Fenix 7 does have a golf tracker or a golf setting where it tracks my swing. It actually has a bit of a coach in there, you could say, where there's a couple of beeps and it helps with your swinging tempo. Now, as I was using it 2 years ago, mostly for golf, it really helped improve my game. I think I improved by like 2 or 3 strokes every game. So by the end of the first summer that I was wearing it, I was in the low 100s. Mind you, I started at about 120s. Okay, so by the end of the summer, I was getting dialed in. Aside of just the golf tracking, there's other metrics that have been part of my fitness journey, and some of them have been heart rate variability, sleep patterns, as well as recovery patterns. Now, I just recently started running probably about a year ago, so I started tracking most of my runs with my Garmin as well, which, again, it's got pretty much everything, and I paid a pretty penny for it too, but it does everything that I need it to do, and it gives me information in various metrics. Now that I'm running, it gives me my elevation, gives me my pace per mile, gives me my estimated pace on a 5K, and it also gives me my estimated pace on a 10K. It gives me an idea of how fast should I run, and it does have a running coach, which I don't use very often. Now, mind you, the running coach, I tried it for like 3 weeks, and it's a pretty tough one, right? But I'm not going to say it. If you are a beginner runner, it is probably a good coaching or good enough coaching that you are going to see improvements over time. Now, am I telling you to go get a Fenix 7? No. Why? Because you probably don't need everything that I utilize for myself. You probably don't necessarily need, at this stage of the game, you don't need a recovery coach or a recovery score to guide your next workout. As a matter of fact, most of the time, I came to realize that at the beginning when I started tracking my recovery, I didn't really need to recover very often because I wasn't really pushing hard enough. And, while that was an aspect of my training that I came to realize later on in life, as I started doing my own hybrid training, it really opened up my eyes to say, hey, you know what if I push harder? Well, then my recovery score came lower. And I started to see more gains, but also at the same time, I had to take days off, and I had to implement certain days off and certain rest periods and active rest days in order to, one, match what my body was telling me to what my watch and the algorithm of Garmin was also telling me. Now, there have been days that the Garmin algorithm tells me to go for either a very long run and I feel like trash and I just don't do it because I know it's not going to be a beneficial session for me. I might get injured. And there's also been days that it tells me to go rest and I feel great. I go to the work, I go to the gym or I go for a run and I just kill it. I nail it, right? So in some instances, not the fitness trackers are not 100% accurate, and they're just really giving you a recommendation based on data of your body. So they are taking into consideration a couple of different points, and I don't know if they take all of them into consideration at the same time, but they take skin temperature. They also take movement. They also take your heart rate variability. And all of these variables are then processed through their algorithms. And Garmin has a different algorithm than Whoop, and Whoop has a different algorithm than Apple, and Apple has a different algorithm than Polar, and so on. And they all have their own software that, displays the algorithm in a specific score for you. Now, I've worn Garmin for 2 years now. I wore a Whoop for almost, I think, 2.5 years as well. Before that, it was the Apple Watch, and before that, it was a Polar Watch. Now, the Polar Watch, when I first started, it was super, super basic. Really only tracked my time, the moment that I started tracking my workout to the moment that I ended it. It tracked the laps, and it also tracked my heart rate. It was super, super basic, and it did what I needed it to do. Over time, my training has changed and it has evolved to where the point that I need to track a couple of different metrics nowadays. Waking up early in the morning and going to bed later at night, I've had to start tracking my sleeping habits and my sleeping patterns to make sure that I am getting as much sleep as possible in order to be able to function the next day and be able to function throughout the week and make sure that I am not putting myself in a position where I am not being beneficial to my business nor my family. So now I track a couple of different variants and variables to make better estimates of what my performance is going to be. And I utilize that data to make sure that, I'm taking my days off, I'm recovering, and if I am feeling under the weather, then I also kind of take an idea of like where my heart rate is and what my body temperature is so that I know if something is coming down, I can, get ahead of it. So should you be buying a fitness tracker? Sure, right? It's a great idea if you start tracking certain metrics. Heart rate is a good one. Heart rate, I think everybody should at least track it for a couple of months to get an idea of what your base heart rate is. If you are already a runner, you probably already are very familiar with tracking your heart rate and spending a couple of minutes in a specific heart rate zone to get a desired effect. If you are a beginner training, whether it's running, weightlifting, CrossFit, hybrid training, whether it's wrestling or whatever it may be, you may not need a fitness tracker to tell you that you are exhausted. Your body is most likely going to tell you that if you're just getting started. You also don't need a fitness tracker if you can feel your heart coming off of your throat and in your hands and feet, you have a high heart rate. Like, that's just what it is, right? You don't need a fitness tracker to tell you that. Now, would it be beneficial for you to have a fitness tracker to tell you how your heart rate improves as you improve your fitness? Sure, right? That would be a very, very good fitness measurement or also health measurement that you can continuously track. Now, who should not be purchasing, or why would we ever tell somebody not to purchase a fitness tracker? Well, if you know that you are prone to become a little obsessed or a little over obsessed on tracking your data and making life choices based on what your smartwatch is telling you or your fitness tracker is telling you, then you're missing the point of fitness. Like, yes, fitness is important so that you can continue to do things, but if you are really emphasizing not going to a social event or not hanging out with your parents or friends because you under recovered last night and you want to go to bed super early today and you're missing somebody's birthday or you're missing a special celebration. I think at that point you really need to, take a step back and maybe forego the idea that a fitness tracker is going to be very beneficial for you. It actually may lead to unhealthy habits. Now, another point is some people may become over-reliant on this data. So if they are not progressing and they're plateaued, they may take unhealthy shortcuts in order to boost their progress. And those unhealthy shortcuts can be not detrimental in the short term, but can definitely be detrimental towards the long-term goal. So if you know that you are prone to becoming a little over-obsessed about the data and making sure that you have perfect data and letting the data dictate your life and making short-term changes to your lifestyle so that you can meet short-term goals, I would highly encourage you not to track your data in that sense, right? Or if you track your data, or if you have a tracker already, have somebody else take a look at the data for you and, have a conversation with them. Tell them how you feel, tell them how you're doing, what your body feels like, right? A lot of times you can become so overly reliant on data that you forget to listen to your body. Your data might say, your score might be so good that it's telling you to go for a really long run, or it might make you think that you can go for a really long run or a very heavy workout, but your body is feeling like trash. If you go and follow what your smartwatch is telling you, you may actually be under recovering, you may actually be overreaching, which is not necessarily a bad thing in the grand scheme of things. But if you do it if you do it often, every week, because you're working on those short-term goals and you want to make sure that every single day is green or every single day is your best day ever, then you might be overlooking what your body is telling you, right? This becomes really important when you're trying to lose weight or you're in a caloric deficit, and now your smartwatch doesn't know that, right? But your heart rate might be elevated. You might be very fatigued. You might actually be taking longer between sets, but your watch keeps telling you to keep pushing and keep pushing and keep pushing. While that may be a good motivator, it also depends on the person behind the watch or behind the fitness tracker. If you can take the data and make wise decisions that are going to not just benefit you in the short term, but are definitely going to benefit your long-term goals, then by all means, go get a smartwatch. Go utilize the data from your fitness trackers and make the best changes to your lifestyle to meet your future lifestyle. If you're somebody who is, and sometimes you don't know if you're going to be over-reliant on data. But if you already have a fitness tracker and you feel that you're not pushing hard enough, or you are pushing too hard, or anywhere in between, then it might be time for you to let go of your fitness tracker, right? A lot of times your fitness tracker may also create a bubble where you're not doing anything outside of what is going to give you that perfect score, which again might be missing out on somebody's birthday, missing out on a flow trip, missing out on camping, missing out on some cool event or some family event and gathering, that all for a number, right? And even worse, if you were to miss those 2 days, or if you were to miss a weekend of training, you may actually come back even more refreshed, even in better spirits, and have a better training session the next week. But if you are, again, overly reliant on the data, you can make some silly mistakes that are detrimental in the short term and in the long term. So overall, should you go get a fitness tracker? Yes, if you're going to utilize the data to make long-term changes. And long-term changes usually mean better sleeping habits, better nutrition habits, better movement habits, and consistent efforts. It doesn't mean perfection, okay? If you know that right now you're in the beginning stages of your fitness journey, or you're in the beginning stages of your athletic career, then no, you probably don't need a fitness tracker to tell you that you need to push yourself, to tell you that you need to recover. Your body is going to do that as long as your sleeping habits are there, your nutrition is dialed in, you're consistently putting effort into the workouts, and you're consistently taking care of your body. So my recommendation would be to assess where you are in your fitness journey and what would you do with the data. Would you improve, or would you end up making short-term changes that do not align with your long-term goals? That's everything that we have for today. Stay tuned for our next episode where we will be talking about CrossFit and kids.